Hi everybody. For this pattern I'm going to be tying the Craig Mathews X-Caddis. It's a really famous fly because of the first material that I'm tying in, which is going to be representing something that's extremely important to the fish and to you as a fisherman. When Craig Mathews decided on this pattern, he had this pattern developed to represent the caddis whenever they're in the emerger or cripple stage. The easiest way to do that is to have a shuck coming out, because that will pretty much send a cue to the fish to say, or send a signal to the fish to say, hey, I'm in that stage where I'm probably the most vulnerable. And whenever the caddis are in this stage, they are without a doubt the most vulnerable. So to do that, I've just tied in a little piece of Zelon or Antron as the pupil shuck. I'm just going to let it hang back there for now. I'll trim it later. Once I have that locked in, I'm going to be dubbing this with a little tan dry fly dubbing. I want to keep the body as fine as possible. In parts of Pennsylvania where I fish, the caddis definitely have very fine bodies, and I like to keep that very representational. The color is just going to be, that will vary depending on the waters where you fish and the caddis that you're trying or attempting to represent. So if you notice, I'm going to keep the body to a really minimum for the most part. Just give you a quick peek at the bottom of it. And at this point, this is where Craig Mathews would tie in his deer hair wing. However, I'm just going to grab a little CDC feather, just strip a few fibers off of it. For some reason, CDC seems to be like magic in the world of fly tying. There is just something that it does for fish. So I'm just going to tie in, around a half a dozen or so fibers as an underwing. If you notice, I just grab those with one hand and I pull them so they were all lined up at the same length. So they're just pretty much extending past the bend of the hook. I trimmed the butt ends. I did not trim those fibers. I really prefer not to trim any feathers, and I like to simply just grab them with one finger and pull them with the other. And for the most part, they still will look uniform. I'm not worrying too much about trimming the rest of the butt end of those fibers, simply because they're not going to be seen by the fish or by anyone else, because I'm going to be covering them with some deer hair. So this is the last step now. I'm just going to cut a little piece of deer hair. I'll show you exactly what that piece looks like. Just cut a little bit, not too much at all. I grab it by the tips. I'm just going to pull out everything that remains, some of those little individual fibers inside. I'm going to place this little piece inside of my deer hair stacker. Just do a quick stack. Okay, when I remove it, all the tips will be aligned. And the easy part is I'm just going to place them directly over the CDC tips that I had before. Just do a little pinch. Make sure everything's in there tight. Then I'm going to lift all the butt ends, pull them back, and finish the head of the caddis. Just do one half hitch. And then I'm going to whip finish these. Okay, to this point now, I'm just going to grab my scissors, pull the butt ends back forward. I'm going to trim them as close as possible. I don't want them setting up too high like an elk hair caddis. And then I'm just going to directly reach back, and I'm going to trim my shuck around 3/4 the length of the hook shank. If you're a little long, that's okay. You can always trim it once you get to the stream if you're not having any luck with this pattern. All right, and this is the finished X-Caddis, originally developed by Craig Mathews. The one revision or variation I had, and I'll show you from the bottom, you'll start to see these little fibers peeking out, are the CDC fibers that I added as the underwing. That is something that I like to have in there. I just used a natural gray. If you notice the color of the deer hair that I chose, it is a natural color. It's a little bit on the darker side, and that represents the caddis that we have here in Pennsylvania. If the caddis that you're trying to represent have more of the bleached look or a whiter wing, then you would go with an elk hair or more of a bleached wing for that look. All right, again, this is the X-Caddis that was developed by Craig Mathews. Thanks for viewing this 2-minute video. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them at the bottom of this page, or you can email comments and questions to tcammisa@gmail.com. Thanks, everybody.